Hi guys, Rach Scott here from Home Loan Connection. I just wanted to drop by and go through a few frequently asked questions that we're getting around the new HomeBuilder Scheme announced by the government earlier this week of $25,000 if you are building a new home or substantially renovating an existing one. So I'm just going to go through some of the frequently asked questions that are actually on the document provided to us by Treasury. So a lot of this is still to be fleshed out a little. So where I think there are questions, I'll highlight that as we go through this document. But essentially, it's a grant of $25,000, as I said, available if you are building of a new home, must be owner occupied, not an investment. So owner occupied and including first home buyers as well, which is great. If you're a first home buyer, we don't believe at this point in time that this disqualifies you from the first home owners grant available in your states in any way, shape or form. So for example, if you're a first home buyer building in Queensland, you could potentially be looking at receiving $40,000, which is a nice little head start in life. I don't think anyone would argue with that. It will be available from June 4, so building contracts signed June 4 to 31st of December 2020. So while it's not limited in the number of people that can apply or receive the grant, it is time limited, and also construction must begin within 3 months of the contract date. I'll circle back to that one a bit later because I think that's a bit of a flaw in the system, but we'll have a bit more of a chat about that if we have time. So how can I access it? This is the most frequently asked question for sure. And we don't have an application form as yet. There isn't an application form or an application portal or anything like that as yet. The agreements between the governments, the state revenue officers for each of the state governments and the federal government are still getting all their agreements signed up. The state revenue officers are the same that handle the FOG, and they will also be managing this grant as well. So again, once we can provide some more clarity on how that process will work, we'll bring that to you. Who can receive it? So you must be a natural person. So not eligible if you're doing it in trying to do it in a company or a trust name. So it must be an individual, 18 years or older. Australian citizen. This is one that we had a question about with an MP that we met with today to discuss this scheme. Now, it's not clear if, for example, we have a couple applying. If only one is an Australian citizen and the other is not, what's the criteria there? So have they met criteria if one is, or do they both need to be? We are seeking clarification on that. So again, we'll come back to you and update you once we can get that one put to bed. Income caps. So if you are a single person, your 2018-19 tax return must indicate that your taxable income was $125,000 or less. If you're a couple, your combined incomes for 2018-2019 must be $200,000 or less taxable income. So we have sought clarification. Is that just salary? Is it also, if you're an investor, is it also rental income and stuff as well? It's basically is your taxable income as per your tax return as at the end of 2019. So that was a fairly blunt answer, is that yeah, if you're on a low salary but you have a ton of investment income coming in, yeah, that puts you over the threshold for income. As I said, the building contracts must be entered into between the 4th of June and 31st of December. Now, if it is to build a new home as a principal place of residence or buying a off the plan apartment or something like that, the value and house and land, if it's a house and land, must be valued at no more than $750,000. If you are substantially renovating, the renovation contract must be a minimum of $150,000 and can't exceed $750,000. The value of the existing property, house and land, cannot be more than $1.5 million. So it can be worth more than $1.5 million post-reno, but I would suggest that part of the qualifying criteria for this will be to provide a valuation as to the value of the property pre-reno. So we'll figure out how we go about sorting all that out once we again can clarify exactly what the supporting documents will be that we need to give them when we apply for that, but we'll update you when we know. Yeah, look, construction's commencing within 3 months of the contract date. This one for me is a little problematic because anyone who's built before will know that while delays can come out of nowhere and no one has control over them. Now, if this grant isn't going to be payable until we can prove that construction has commenced, what happens if there are weeks of inclement weather and the build just literally cannot start within that 3-month qualifying time? What happens? Is that grant then revoked? So again, that was another question we had for the Department of Treasury today, and again, when we can bring some clarification on that, we will. Look, it's pretty decent FAQs to start with, but there were just some, from a lending perspective, there were some immediate questions that we think need answering. As people who are often involved in the nuts and bolts of house and land construction, we know all the places that it can fall over and delays can happen and things can go wrong. So we just had a few questions around that and how that will dovetail in with lending. So look, I think that's pretty much basically the major parts of the qualifying criteria. A good question that we did get, and if you currently own a block of land and you've been sitting on it and you've still been working through your plans and your specs and all that sort of stuff and don't yet have a building plan in place, lucky you, you're about to get 25 grand if you meet all the other qualifying criteria. So yes, if you currently own a block, that's fine. You don't have to have not owned anything prior. So there's no restrictions on that. As long as you don't have a building contract signed before the 4th of June, you are good to go. Apartments off the plan, house and land package, all eligible. In terms of the substantial renovation, there are a few restrictions. So it can't be for stuff like pools, tennis courts, shed, separate garages. We did get clarification around a granny flat, being that it's an actual dwelling or part of the dwelling, an extension of the dwelling, even if it's not attached to the house, because that's what the wording says. So again, we did get clarification that it does appear that granny flats will be fine, as long as no one goes taking the mickey and trying to make a pool house look like a granny flat. So keep it legit, a granny flat, kitchenette, laundry, all those sorts of things. As long as it's legitimate, we believe that it will be allowed, even though it's not attached to the existing dwelling. Owner builders, not allowed, I'm afraid. Must be registered builders, only on the contract. And I think, look, that pretty much covers off all the questions that we've had thrown at us so far. In terms of lending, most lenders, like the FOG, we expect will let you use this grant once we can show that you haven't been approved for it, as your funds to complete. So it's less money that you have to borrow, which is fantastic. And in some cases, it saves you a significant amount of money on mortgage insurance. More likely than not going to be able to be used towards your 5% genuine, in lieu of 5% genuine savings. So most lenders still will want to see your genuine savings to a value of 5% of the total contract price. That being said, if you're a first home buyer and you don't yet have 5% genuine savings, but you do have a little bit of genuine savings, or you've got very generous relatives who would like to gift you part of a deposit, if you're renting and you can show an excellent rental ledger, then hit me up and just let's have a chat about your particular circumstances, because there are a few policies around that we can get around the 5% gen savings if we don't have it. So yeah, give me a call if you don't yet, but yeah, if you are ready to go, and if you do need some help with construction loans, they can be interesting. I've been a specialist in construction loans since I started as a mortgage broker, also been a specialist in first home buyers for over 20 years. So if you are looking for a broker, lucky you, I'm a specialist in both fields. So give me a call, and if you have any other questions that I haven't addressed, drop them in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them as soon as I possibly can. Otherwise, have a great day, and I'll see you later on. Bye.